to do, or it may be a tradition for in their family for them to commit certain crimes. So yes. Would anyone else like to share? Okay, so I'll go ahead and share. One of the challenges that I sometimes face when working with the youth is sometimes, they're just afraid to open up and let their personal business or what may have led them to receiving assistance from the programs that we offer. So it's so important for us to just, and me specifically, to meet them where they are, hear them out, let them know that I'm here to assist them. So that has been one of the greatest challenges that I face with working with the youth.
And Kenya, I believe we have some in the chat as well.
Okay. Okay.
So I'll read a few. So
Okay.
Jean Paris, and I do apologize if I'm pronouncing it incorrectly. Jean Paris said parents are one of the challenges. Maria said YDC regulations. Gail Murray says parents who do not follow up with what we set up for the child. That's a big one as well. Latanya Bolden said, interrupting their current environment, people, places, and things. And Suzanne Hoagland says, parents and not being able to get the client on the phone. That's also a big one.
Yes. Yes, that is a big one. Sometimes we have to make home visits just to meet them face to
Yes.
face to get them to participate in services. So we really understand what you guys are saying. And I think for the most part, we all deal with the same challenges when working with juveniles. So again, I appreciate you guys sharing that information.
And Kenya, we have one more. Cedric
Okay.
McMiller is saying having enough resources. And that is why we're here today.
Yes, yes, Mr. Cedric. That is why we are here. Again, I will talk about the services that we offer in the social services department. We are here to help and support you all and your clients. So please use us as much as you need to. And again, I'll share more information about that towards the end of the slide. So in this informational session, we will be discussing some of the challenges faced by youth in the justice system. I'm just going to share a few statistics. We will have a guest speaker, Miss Danielle Simpson. I'm so happy to have her, who will just discuss her experience with working with our youth and advocating for our youth. I'll discuss just some innovative approaches to client advocacy. We'll have time for questions. And then there are just some things that I want to leave you guys with before we actually end this session today. Okay? So with that being said, let's get started. Okay, so challenges faced by youth in the criminal justice system. So as we all know, there are several factors and or challenges that children face that may contribute to their involvement in the criminal justice system. So the factors that you see on this slide, which I'll be going over in a few, are often interconnected and may intensify each other, which can result in a higher likelihood of criminal behavior and subsequent involvement with the justice system. So just going over the factors in this wheel that you will see on the screen. So lack of access to support services, very, very important. And in addition to just support services, just resources, whether it's food, clothing, housing, and I also want to mention community programs that are dedicated to the youth that assist them with some of the concerns that they're facing and that tries to prevent them from future involvement in the justice system. So we all know that how important it is to just have a support system behind us. And oftentimes, many clients that we deal with, specifically our youth, they do not have that. Okay. So media influence, we have found that that has been a humongous influence on the youth that we serve. They idealize, these people on social media. Who oftentimes glorify criminal behavior. We all know that when you get on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter, there's a lot of portrayal of crime, violence, and some youth think that that is okay. Okay, okay, thank you. So we all know the influence that the media plays or has on our youth. And also, I think it's very important to note that they think that they can also run to the media and just tell all of their personal business and the things that we've done. And a lot of times we see that that is just something that is used against them time and time again. So that's something that we actually teach our youth who are involved in our department, do's and don'ts, media do's and don'ts. Okay, so media influence is a huge one. Socioeconomic status. So we have things like poverty. Okay, some of our youth, they come from low income families and are more likely to engage in criminal activities due to the lack of access in resources, education, which I'll go over in a few, and additional opportunities. Okay, so with as it relates to education specifically, sometimes they are going to schools that lack poor educational environments. Okay, so and then we have those who do not finish school. We deal with high dropout rates. Okay, and just sometimes most of our youth who are involved in the criminal justice system, we notice that sometimes they have just limited access to quality education, which can also lead to them being involved in the criminal justice system. And then unemployment, okay? A lot of times, most of our clients don't have, especially because of their record, they don't have access to employment, or they are being told, no, they can't get this job time and time again because of the record that, they may have. So limited job opportunities for the young people that we deal with can also increase the likelihood of, just engaging in illegal activities to support themselves and their families. Okay. And so going to the next factor, which is our mental health and substance abuse concerns with our youth. And that is so, so huge. So a lot of them have undiagnosed or unaddressed mental health disorders, such as things like depression, anxiety, or some sort of conduct disorder that can result in, them being involved in the justice system. Substance abuse. Some of our clients are exposed early to drugs and alcohol, and sometimes, as we know, that alone can impair their judgment and increase the likelihood of behavior. And then what about trauma that they've experienced in the past? Sometimes, most times, the youth that we deal with, you sit down with them and they're like, I don't have a mom, I don't have a dad, or I've experienced some sort of abuse and neglect. So oftentimes they're more likely to engage in risky behaviors and criminal activities. Okay. What about their community, unsafe community environment? A lot of times some of our youth are exposed to violence in their community. They're pressured by, gang activity or different gangs joining different gangs that may be throughout their community. Okay, so we know with some of our youth, they don't have a choice. There is strong gang presence in a lot of the neighborhoods here in Georgia, and then sometimes they're joining these gangs for protection, a sense of identity, a sense of belonging, which we all know leads to family dynamics. And I think I touched on limited education and skills, not seeing the importance of continuing their education, and then family dynamics, their parents aren't involved as they should be. We have some parents who, they work so hard to support themselves and their family. It's hard to be involved, with their children because they work all day, every day. Okay. And then we have some family conflicts that our youth are exposed to. So what about, domestic violence, any type of instability within the home that can lead to emotional and behavioral issues with our children, okay? And then substance abuse. I know I touched on it in regard to our youth being involved in substances, but what about the things that they see their parents being involved in? Sometimes a lot of our clients, they are faced with taking care and raising their siblings because of their parents' substance use, okay? So these are just some factors that I wanted to share with you all, and I do believe that understanding these factors and how they affect our clients is extremely important, and it's useful when developing the effective prevention and intervention strategies, okay? Move on. Okay, so here are just two statistics that I wanted to show you all. We have our general incarceration rates. So as of recent reports, Georgia has approximately 1,500 to 2,000 youth in juvenile detention facilities on any given day. This number can fluctuate based on new admissions and releases, okay? And then recidivism, something that we are trying to solve within this department. Recent studies indicate that approximately 50% of youth released from juvenile detention facilities in Georgia reoffend within 3 years. Okay, that is wow. Okay, this figure is consistent with national averages, but highlights ongoing challenges in reducing recidivism. Okay. Okay, so without further ado, we have a guest speaker, Miss Danielle Simpson, who is here with us today. She is a senior staff attorney working in the Youth Advocacy Division, and I thought about her because she spoke at one of our Ladders events previously, and the youth who attended that event, that kickoff event, they received the information that she shared so well. So I thought, why not have her come and speak about this topic and share her experience. So before we get started with Miss Danielle, before she gets to answering the questions that I have for her, Miss Simpson, I do just want to tell you thank you for taking the time out of your schedule to meet with us today, and again share your experience and answer the questions that I have for you. So before I get started with the questions that I have, Ms. Simpson, is there anything that you would like to share with us?
No, I think I appreciate you giving me, the opportunity to speak. I really liked how everybody in the chat immediately said that parents were one of the biggest difficulties that they have working with kids. And
Yes.
I was the first person to say yes, that is the one of the biggest issues that I have. So it's nice to be here with other people who are also having those same issues so we can all kind of come together and, ruminate on all of the difficulties that we have because it's not an easy job and it's, really supposed to be for people who are the strongest, people who are the most dedicated. It's tireless. Talking to another defense attorney, even last night, I said this work is really hard and it requires a lot out of us 24/7. So I appreciate the opportunity to be here, and we're really, again, kudos to everybody who does this work because it's just not easy.
Yes, yes. Thank you. Thank you for that. So, question number one, if you don't mind sharing, could you please tell everyone what led you to working with and advocating for juveniles?
Sure. So I'm actually from Minneapolis. I'm from George Floyd Square. And then I went to school at the University of North Dakota, so very, very, very far away in another land that is much colder than here in Georgia. And I always, even growing up, just always have been advocating for people who did not advocate for themselves and speaking up for people that sometimes like our clients got me in some trouble where I was like always talking and always trying to stick up for my friends and stick up for people. But in this role, it's definitely become, my life's calling and being able to advocate for the kids who really sometimes don't have a voice. I think that the biggest thing is like we just constantly have these hearings and things. There's so many people talking around them, but there's not a lot of people talking to them. And so I went and I was a prosecutor for adult in Fulton County for a long time and did community prosecution where I represented community members who were just seeing like constant offenses in their neighborhood in the English Avenue, Vine City, formerly known as the Bluff. And so I really handled drug trafficking cases. But then I realized that a lot of my offenders were very young. And we knew that these weren't their drugs. They just happened to be at the house at the wrong time. And so then I just decided I wanted to do juvenile and wanted to do that. And I left the DA's office in Fulton and did that in Douglas County, where I was the deputy chief over the juvenile division for 3 years before going over to the truancy intervention project and really working on the school to prison pipeline and keeping kids in school. So school discipline cases, defending truancy cases, working on 504s, IEPs, and trying to basically keep them in school because that's really the start of a lot of the things that had been happening. And then came over here, and now I've been working and doing delinquent defense, which has just been an awesome experience. So that was kind of my trajectory. I don't think I will always have to work with adults because we have to work with their parents, but my clients will be kids. I just think there's a lot that they can learn. They have tons of redeeming quality. They're very sweet. Even the kids that I have with the worst offenses are the sweetest kids that I have who really, again, I don't really think that there's anything as such as a bad kid. I think kids have bad circumstances or make bad decisions, and we're here to teach them and put in services, resources, and help them be accountable, but be empathetic. And I think that it's really important the work we do because this is their first encounter with the criminal justice system, and it should feel fair. And it should feel that somebody's like fighting for them and doing those things. So I've really have, pushed that really hard and letting them know like I am there. They are my client, but they tell me what to do. They guide it. And I'm just like helping navigate them to their goals.
Thank you for that. So, question number two. How do you build trust and rapport with the clients, the youth, and specifically you work with, especially those who may be resistant to receiving your help? And I know I could definitely use this answer because in the icebreaker I shared that I do sometimes just, have trouble getting my clients sometimes to just really open up. So I'm really looking forward to your answer.
I think the biggest thing is being authentic. I am my true self. Like I talk how I talk. I don't try to sugarcoat it. I don't use a bunch of language, but I also don't speak in a way that I'm like trying to be cool. Like I'm not walking around being like, that's cap if I don't say it. Like I got to be able to use the language that I use. And there's things I don't know. And so then I allow them to also teach me. And so the best thing that I think that I do, which I've learned from others, right? So I've done our trainings that we've had and like learned along the way, is to really talk about anything outside of this case. They ruminate about this incident. And a lot of my clients will, this case happened months ago, sometimes years ago. So like constantly, every time we interact, we're just talking about this one incident that happened in their life at one point in time, which for some of my clients the other day, one of my kids was saying, that during that freshman year of high school that he, has alleged to commit this offense was a really difficult time. So I'm constantly taking him back to this really difficult time in his life and talking about this thing that he's probably been grounded for and his parents they're pissed about. And then we're just like talking about it over and over and over. So I really try my hardest to talk to them about anything else, like who they are, trying to get to know them. What do they like to do? What music do they like? What do they do outside of this? Like before we even get started. And you kind of see their trajectory change. Like at first they're like really nervous and they're quiet, and then you say, well, tell me about you, and he's like, my name's Johnny, I like football, this is what I want to be when I grow up, because it instills that youthfulness again. It's like, what do you really want to do in the future? And like I said, I think being my authentic self, talking to them in a way that's real. I don't make promises that I can't keep. So if I say I'm gonna promise you to do something, then I really am gonna do it. But I don't overpromise, right? So if I don't think I'm gonna be able to come and see you while you're at the facility every day, we all know that's not feasible. When is it that I said that I can be there? I can make sure I'm there within the next 2 weeks, or I can make sure I'm doing this, or I'll come up to the school and visit you. And that's the same thing with the charges. I never act like I have a magic wand. I try to be really honest and authentic, and coming from the prosecution perspective, which I was able to speak about at our most recent conference, I also am like, look, based off of the charges, based off where you're at, based off of these things, I don't know if you're going to get out, but I would be more likely than not, because I'm also setting the expectation. But that's a really hard conversation. I had a kid that told me the other day, he was like, well, you're just like everyone else in the system. And you guys are all working together against me. And I was like, whoa, at the end of the day, I work for you. If you don't like my representation, you absolutely can say you don't want me to represent you. We can walk into the court right now and say that I'm not a good fit for you, because we're building a rapport, building a relationship. The only way that you're going to be able to trust me is if you let your guard down. But if off rip, you don't really think that I'm the best fit for you, then let's do something about that. And I think giving them the freedom and the autonomy in a situation where they have no freedom, literally, and have not been given any choices or chances and not been heard, allows them to just like build trust with you, so that, and if you say you're going to do something, you do it, and try to show up in that way and try to like answer their questions. I also ask them first and foremost if they have any questions. Try not to talk at them immediately, because of course I want to talk about like what we're going to do today in court and all of these things that are going to happen, but they have their own questions, they have their own thoughts, they have their own ideas. So just being able to get down on their level and talk to them and just kind of figure out their feelings and emotions. I also bring them like fidget toys to play with in court, because they're very nervous. They play with their hair, they play with other things, they're swirling around in their chairs. So giving them something to like focus their energy and attention on has also been helpful to kind of get them into focus, and just preparing them for however the judge is. I have a judge that likes to go and meet the kid and, come down from the bench and actually meet and talk to them and shake their hand. So preparing them for those moments and what's going to happen also like builds trust and builds rapport too.
Thank you for that. And emphasis on just the terms that they say, and sometimes we're not knowledgeable about them. So we learn things with our clients through our clients. Our clients teach us things just as we are teaching them things as well. So there have been a few clients and I'm like, well, can you explain what that means? Because I've never heard that before. So yes, right. That is true. So next question. When working with justice-involved youth, are there any specific patterns or similarities you've noticed among those that you represent?
Yeah, I think the majority, to be honest and truthful, I think, and I feel like sometimes I sound real old when I say these things. Like, I just feel like there's no village for them. I feel like, growing up, I had a small family, but I still, like, at one point lived with my uncles and my aunt and my grandma, and there were just multiple people in the community. I remember, my neighbors going and talking to my parents, and you were like, hey, so like Danielle did this or she did that. There were neighbors who were looking out. So even when my parents were there was someone else. And a lot of my kids just really miss mentors. And you talked about this earlier, but like appropriate adults, right? So you need to be appropriate, because sometimes their uncle or aunt is not the person who's appropriate. They're the person who's getting them into trouble. And then I think, like, sometimes too, what I'm seeing is that a lack of understanding as well, because like kids, like, we need to understand too that like social media is their third space. And what I say by that is, like, again, I sound old, but like I used to have to go to the Mall of America to meet my friends, hang out with them. That's where we hung
Yes.
out. That's where we met up. Kids don't have to do that. They FaceTime. My son, who's 16, he just FaceTimes. And so I'm like, hey, all summer long, I'm like, do you want to go do something? And he's like, no, I could just talk to him while I'm here. And so social media has become their third space. And so what I'm really realizing is they're spending a lot of time there, of course, like you said, but they just also lack a lot of the ability to like have like direct conversation, because they text a lot. I sometimes can't get my son to answer a question without texting him first. So, but with that being said, with those patterns, the way that we need to represent them, I FaceTime my clients. I got to meet them where they're at. We can't
Yes.
always expect them to constantly meet us where we're at. So I FaceTime my clients in order to talk to them. I text them a lot. I'll ask them what's going on. I'll be able to get some information. If they don't have a phone, it can be a little bit more difficult. Like somebody said, getting parents to answer the phone and meeting with you. But I think the biggest thing in what I'm seeing in the trajectory of it, a lot of my clients are also like using substances to mask things. So we're trying to also like really get them to understand that like therapy and these therapeutic services, especially in the brown communities where that would have had a negative connotation, that's a positive thing. So telling them like, I have a therapist, they have a therapist, everybody has a therapist. We got to be able to talk about these things. We can't just like, constantly suppress it. So I think the theme that I definitely see is like a lack of understanding, even with parents. A lot of parents like trying to get them to understand what is like abnormal behavior and then also what is normal teenage behavior. It's like we all can't remember what we were like as a teenager. Like I talk to my mom and she'll say, you don't remember you were exactly the same? And I'm like, no. So when he does things that drive me crazy, that I'm just trying to remember where he's at developmentally. And so some of that is really having conversations with parents and educating them on these things. So because I think there's also a trend of just parents who just really don't understand. I have one parent who at 16 years old, every single one of her daughters was, quote, disrespectful and needed to leave the home. So now she has two more young kids and they're probably going to be in the same boat. So like, how is it that we can also get parents to really understand developmentally where they are? And I told a parent the other day, I said, the child's brain at this age as a teenager is just lighting up with like love and acceptance. That's all they want. And she was like, I do love him and I do accept him. And I was like, he don't want that from you. He wants that from his peers. He wants that from the girls or the guys they're talking to. So like, that isn't the same thing. And it's hard to really understand. It's like they want acceptance and they want love and they want all these things, and how crucial the peer influence is. Like, a lot of clients will say, I don't know why their parents will be like, I don't know why he did that. I can't believe he did that. That is so out of the norm. And it's like, because he just wanted love. He wanted acceptance in that way. So I think that, there's sometimes it's just like a misconception about our youth. And, the life that they're living and this age that they're living is not the same. Even when we were teenagers, it's not the same. So we've got to be able to like find the middle ground to work together.
Yes, yes. Thank you for sharing that. So, in your experience, how does trauma impact the behavior and decision making of the youth you have worked with? And this is a two-part question. How do you incorporate trauma-informed care into your practice? So when you notice that a client has some trauma that they've experienced, how does that affect the way you communicate with them, how you work with them overall?
That's a good question. I think that everyone who's on here who works with juveniles knows specifically that trauma is a huge piece of why they are where they are, the decisions that they make. I think that it really impacts how they perceive authority. So it depends on their situations and how they've grown up, how they see authority figures, how they make decisions. And we have to be able to work with them in a space of like, not judging, right? We have to be
Yes.
really has to be not judgmental. I cannot judge you and be like, well, why would you do that? Like that's the way they
Right.
did it. And we have to be able to have an understanding. And then like giving them the opportunity to express themselves openly. I had a client that I met with and I was like, well, is there anything else? We were at the end of this conversation with his stepmother and I was like, is there anything else that you want to tell me? And then she goes and says, well, yeah, me and his dad broke up. I basically am the only mother that's raised him. He also saw, his younger sibling be assaulted, and he was the one who discovered the evidence. And then he had a cousin that passed away. So it wasn't until after we'd had this whole discussion that all of these things came out. But then in her experience with him, she was like, well, Johnny's just like, he's angry and he doesn't listen and he's disrespectful and he also is like mischievous. And I was like, well, there's a lot of things that you said. So sometimes like they don't recognize what their life experience is trauma.
Right.
That's just
Right.
how they live. That's just the things that they've been through. So trying to like identify it and then realizing that, they can be defensive, it can lead to like risky behaviors, that the trauma that they have had is different than even the trauma that I may have had in my life. And so I can't, it's apples and oranges, and really being able to like not be judgmental, let them express themselves, acknowledging like that is, something that's difficult for them to go through. And then also making sure that I am a safe place for them to bring up those things, because if you're not, then you'll never get to actually the root of any of that decision making if you can't figure out, if you can't be the place that they feel comfortable coming to.
Well, thank you for doing that. I think that is very, very important. So this is more so outside of the youth specifically, your clients specifically. But what are some of the biggest challenges that you face when advocating for the clients that you have, and how do you overcome them?
I think, like I said before, I think it's a lack of understanding. I think there's also a lack of understanding within the justice system. There's a book that I read called Long Way Down by Jason Reynolds, and he said that like every decision that a teenager makes they think is the best decision. If you ask any teenager, whatever choice that they made in that moment, they think is the best. It's our job to teach them like, well, maybe there's a different choice. Like, let's lead to that.
Right.
But they never think that they made a bad choice. And we sometimes, even as adults, even as parents, even as something else, someone else who's in this work, sometimes we make judgment calls about, what they've done or why they did something. And we don't really know the ecosystem of their environment. So figuring out for a kid and being like, Jane, what is your school's ecosystem? How do things work? Because I can tell you all day like what to do, but at the end of the day, I have to be able to like guide you down that path. And I think that's been the hardest thing, and the challenges I faced is like really getting the DA's office or the judges or anyone just to really like understand where the kids are coming from. Like I had a client who said, he was supposed to make curfew. His dad didn't answer. His friends were like, I'll give you a ride. He gets in the car. They go on like this spree of criminal activity. And he's like, well, what was I supposed to do? And they're like, well, just sit where you are and make a phone call. And he's like, I didn't think of that, right? Because their brains just like, they can't really see that far in the future. And they lack that. And I think that sometimes the actors in the systems make it difficult because they make a lot of like assumptions about our clients, or they make a lot of, they just think that they know things. And people who've been doing this work, and they'll be real quick to tell me like, I've been doing this for 25 years, but they become a little jaded in their views. Or we take our own traumas into situations with our clients. Or for example, I had a kid that was doing a DJJ screening, and they said, well, we've had so many kids that have like died recently. And I'm like, but that's not him. So we're bringing our own things into all of the things that we think, or people think like, oh, it's just another entering auto. So why is it that we should care? And so I think that those are just like barriers in really getting them to understand, especially as having brown clients, that are getting them to also understand how they feel in police interactions, bringing up race, making it a part of your defense, and talking about those things. I think that sometimes I can see those barriers as well, and it just depends on the person. So you got to kind of know who it is you're dealing with, the judge, the DA, the probation officer, to really like understand them in order to understand how they operate.
That is very true. That is very true. So, what preventative measures or early interventions do you believe are most effective in keeping youth out of the justice system?
For me personally, I think this is a big one. School-related offenses. I went to a conversation about whether the school system is like the third criminal justice system, and I think it is. We're really railroading kids out of traditional settings. I mean, again, I have a lot of clients that it's a fight, like it's a one-on-one fight. There's, it's an affray, it's a misdemeanor. Well, they're being kicked out of school for a year, and then they're also coming to juvenile court. So they're starting a history. They're losing out on the traditional setting. They've lost their positive peer activities. They've lost all their support. They've lost services, and then they kind of lose hope. And I think those are the three things that, in order to have preventative services, we have to have services, we have to have support, and the kids have to have hope. They've got to have some kind of hope that there's something out there for them. All of us, even adults, we need hope. We need to be able to see it and, know that there's something on the other side. So I think that the biggest thing of like ways that we can really remove them or keep them from constantly coming back in the justice system is like really quick intervention. Again, I did truancy cases, which everyone across the state who you talk to, judges included, may roll their eyes and they're like, I don't want to talk about a chance case. It's not the biggest fish in the sea. Even probation officers are like, I've got this, SB 440 kid on my caseload, but then I also have this Chin's case. So, but I do believe like in the broken windows theory, and it's like if we could just like work on these things at a smaller level, then they won't escalate. Every kid that I've ever had, transferred to superior court or a designated felony with restrictive custody always started off with a Chin's case, always started off with a low-level misdemeanor offense that we just kind of brushed off. And then we didn't really address the issues. I'm really big, and a part of that thing I'm talking about at the Children Welfare Summit this winter is teen dating violence, and really identifying what is going on at home with kids that are the perpetrators of teen dating violence. So we ignore a lot of factors, but these are learned behaviors. So if we can identify those early on the front end and get them involved and invested in services, I think that it'll definitely work and it won't escalate their behaviors.
Okay. Now, I know we've been discussing challenges, but I do want to highlight some positivity for a moment. So, based on everything that we've discussed so far, can you share a success story where, the approaches that you've mentioned may have made a significant difference in the life of a client that you've represented in the past or currently?
Yeah, I really thought hard about this one. I think it's like a culmination of clients. I couldn't think of one. And again, we talk about success, and it's like, what is the measurement of success, right? So that's
Right.
another piece too, is like, what are we saying is successful? So I kind of think of one of my clients who I had previously, and he was really struggling in school and had some like community-based offenses. I mean, he had been shot several times. And so my conversation with him was so radically different, especially working in regards to the school system. He was like, look, if I come back to this school, it's on site. Like there are rival gang members in the building. I
Right.
cannot go to back there. And I was like, okay, so then what is it that you do want? And he was like, well, I want to trade. I'd like a job, and he was open to counseling. And so, the longevity of just the days of his life were a success. He never went back into school. So that's like, was it a failure in that regard? But what's the measurement we're using? I think like even I have a client who I had received, and again, we don't pick our clients, right? This is the whole point of this job. Like, we don't get to say no, or, it's like, here's your client in your case, who I had a kid who like was really on the verge of being committed to DJJ, and they just had decided like nope, he needs to be committed, he's got to go sit down, he's got to have restrictive custody. And I spent weeks like combing through his previous probation, getting to know him and what he wanted and who he was. And I like read his IEP and his 504 plan, and I talked to his family and I talked to his cousins, and then really figured out what it was that he was looking for and got him connected. I don't know why every single kid, I blame TikTok, but every single kid I have wants to be a fashion designer with a clothing brand, or they want to be an entrepreneur. So like connecting him with those resources. And then also, being able to comb through all of his stuff and realize how many services he had not actually fully received. We ordered them, but what had he actually participated in? And so through that, I was able to find a program. So we and the social service department is so helpful in that, and knowing what is out there in the community, knowing what services are available, was able to connect him to a program that was like also ran by the court. Now I just saw him the other day, and he was doing his vision board and talking about the things that he wanted to do. He's not committed. He's not sitting in someone's facility. He's in the community and finally getting all of the support that he needed, because with all of the work that comes with it, I was able to really find gaps in services that he had not received. So instead of just looking at what was ordered, I looked at what we actually had done, and I said, we failed him. So he deserves another chance, regardless of like his history. By the time I met him, he had 6 cases. But so I think it's like really like we're talking about this, like and that was something that was like talked about at the presentation. We're built for this. Like, this is not an easy job. We are built for this work. We are built to help these children. So all of my kids, we're planting seeds. We cannot plant the seed and eat the fruit in the same day. So we have no idea if like the things that we're saying are resonating. I don't know if my own son, if the things I say are resonating. However, like, months later he says something, or like me, I say something that my mom taught me, right? And then you're like, oh, well, I guess everything I was repeating over and over again was worth it. So I guess like those are some little wins, but we won't really see it. And it could be we won't see it for generations. But the hope is that somebody that something you say to them, something you do for them will help them, help their children, something like that. So it's yet to be determined what the successes are, but we just keep trying every day to keep planting the seeds.
Yes, and success, there is no one true meaning of success. Success looks different. And I think I had to learn that with with this job and the clients, that I've had in the past. A success could be making it to a doctor's appointment next week, so success looks different for our clients. And, as long as they are making strides, towards the goals that they would like to accomplish, to me, those are successes. So, Miss Danielle, I really do want to just say thank you so much for being a guest speaker. When I asked you to speak, you just told me yes, you did not hesitate. So I appreciate you. And then being here to share your experience. So thank you.
Thank you so much. Again, I think like something that Senator Raphael Warnock said just recently is like, these are all our children. I need my neighbor's children to be okay, so my children are okay. So hopefully we can see improvements, and basically everybody thinking that it's not these kids versus these kids. They're all of our children in the state of Georgia, and we have to figure out how to give them a better future so that, we can have a better future.
Correct. Thank you. So we are going to hop into...
Before you continue, there is a question in the chat for Ms. Simpson. Anthony P. is asking, is there a list or a link to some website that lays out all of the resources available to juveniles, especially for violent offenders? So is there something you refer to when you're looking for resources for your clients?
That's a great question. So it depends on every area. I'm in Fulton County is going to look very different than like things that I've done, down in like Bibb County and Macon, or things that I've also done in smaller areas like Jasper, Georgia. So my recommendation is to always start off with the courts and really figuring out what the juvenile courts have as far as resources. And then also researching. Whenever I get a summer intern, my first question is like, find me this or find me that. Find me somewhere that I can do those things. So if they're, again, it's not cookie cutter, because at the end of the day, every single community is different. Every kid has a different need. And I don't ever want to make it seem like every two communities are alike. So it's a real lawyer way to say it depends, but it really truly does depend. But I'm willing to help, and I can put my information in the chat if anybody wants to reach out.
And that, just to piggyback off of what Ms. Danielle said, the social services department is here to help as well. We have so many resources that we are willing to share with you all. We are only a phone call and or email away. So, in addition to reaching out to Ms. Simpson, if you would like to know of some resources, please don't hesitate to contact us. And we wouldn't mind at all sharing them with you, because that's why we're here. And I'll go over that in a few as well. So thank you. Thank you for that question.
And
Thank
there's
you.
two more raised hands.
Oh, sorry.
Ruth and Kenneth, if you guys want to unmute.
And while they're unmuting too, I did see a question about they had a client who was wanted to be a fashion designer entrepreneur, and said, is this ambition just a void filler because they don't have career role models? I really truly think that most of my clients want to be creators and content creators, because I think that they see that as something that is like tangible that they can do, right? It's not something like, if I told a kid like right now, it's like, oh, I want to be a lawyer. One of my clients asked, he was like, I think I want to be a lawyer. And I was like, well, there's 4 years of undergrad and then 3 years of law school. You know what I mean? So, but I think that they see content creators and they see kids that are their own age making content. So I think it's not necessarily that it's like a void filler. I think that they're really just, you cannot be what you cannot see. And so we've got to work on exposing them to opportunities to see what they can be, because they don't know what they don't know. So once we're able to, show them some more things, even my clients that say, I want to be in sports, I'm like, okay, well, when sports is done, here's all these athletes that like the knees go out. What is it you want to do after that? And so then, or I say, close your eyes and you think about what it is you're doing in the future. You're sitting in an office. What work does that look like? And they'll kind of tell you. And then you can say, one of my kids was like, well, I see myself really being outside and like working with, this and working with that. I ended up looking up like field turf jobs. I was like, you could make so much money actually working outside with your hands doing like turf for these like professional athletes and sports teams. It's a whole career. So again, they just don't know. So I don't necessarily know if it's a void filler, but I think it's like they just don't know because they haven't seen it.
And before we move on, I know our info session was supposed to end at 3 p.m. But if you guys just don't mind hanging out with us for a few more minutes, we would really, really appreciate it, because we want to answer all of the questions that you may have. So I apologize if we go over 3 p.m., but we would love to still talk about this topic with you guys.
I'll stop running my mouth. I'm gonna turn my camera.
No.
Thank you again. I appreciate it.
Were there any other questions before we moved on? I want to make sure everyone has a chance to ask a question. Okay. So I'll go ahead, and there will be time for questions at the end of the PowerPoint. So you guys will have time to ask more questions if you would like. So this next slide, I wanted to just put a few ideas together of just innovative approaches to client advocacy, because I do think that by taking innovative approaches to client advocacy, we are able to focus on really addressing the unique needs of our clients. So the first strategy that I have, or approach that I have, is of course referring your clients to the social services department. So I know some of you, if not most, are aware of the programs that we offer, and for the sake of time, I'm not going to go too deep into it, but after this informational session, I will send everyone an email just sharing brochures and one-pagers about the programs that we offer here. But it is our main goal to just transcend our clients' current circumstances, through resource connection. So if you have clients who struggle with mental health concerns, substance use concerns, we do have resources that are able to assist with those things, both inpatient and outpatient. We assist with helping our clients gain employment, helping them with their resume, making sure that they are aware of how to dress appropriately for an interview, okay? Most of our clients, we know that this is a huge issue, housing, okay? So that is something that we do try to assist our clients with. And then most importantly, education, okay? We have a program that is dedicated to assisting our youth between the ages of 16 and 24. If they have not obtained their high school diploma, we will guide them with obtaining their GED and or a vocational trade from a technical school in their area at no charge to them, at no cost to them, okay? So, we definitely want to assist our clients and your clients in any way that we can. And as I mentioned, I will share that information. All it takes is for you guys to submit a referral. I'll put those steps in the email as well, and we would love to assist your clients, okay? And then I have policy, advocacy, and reform. So this is a big one. I know it doesn't happen overnight, but working towards systemic change by advocating for policy reforms that address root causes of issues faced by our clients is very useful. And then also, engaging in lobbying efforts, participating in policy discussions. Collaboration is a big one for us, but collaborating with community organizations or advocacy organizations to just promote change in laws and practices that oftentimes affect our clients, okay? Multidisciplinary team collaboration. So as Miss Danielle mentioned, it takes a village, okay? We are here to work together with you all to make sure that the outcomes for our clients are improved, okay? So we want to be able to come together and collaborate, share our diverse expertise, and in my opinion, this will help, as I mentioned, improve client outcomes, which may lead to the reduction in recidivism, okay? Keeping in mind that young people experience the justice system differently than adults. And Miss Danielle, I know you touched on this as well, but it is a real thing. The youth, their brains are still developing. Sometimes they aren't able to make correct decisions. They have trouble with decision making, oftentimes more than adults. They don't fully understand, the consequences of their actions. So I think it's very important to be mindful that we cannot handle our youth the way we handle the adults, our adult clients, okay? And then trauma-informed care, which is also very important, just acknowledging the impact of trauma on our clients, and then just integrating that understanding into how we assist them, okay? So doing things like creating a safe environment, building trust, and empowering our clients is extremely important, okay? And then youth advocacy, youth-centered advocacy, okay? So as we are advocating for our clients, and with your guidance, of course, I think it is very important to also include them in the decision-making process and respect their perspectives as well. I know Ms. Danielle mentioned that it's not really helpful to talk around them, and not talking to them. So, sometimes it's easier said than done, but being mindful about those things can assist as well. And I know in working with my clients, I have found that they are more receptive when I include them in things like the case planning process, where we set achievable goals, and plan interventions together. So doing those things that I have just mentioned, I believe will ultimately lead to better outcomes. Okay. Alrighty, so any questions? And we are not at the end yet. I do have some key takeaways after this slide, but I do want to get into any questions that anyone in the audience may have for the Social Services Department or Miss Danielle.
So there is a question. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Kenya.
Now I was going to say, and Tia, if you don't mind helping me out with the chat box.
Yes. So Kenneth Cook, he stated it was mentioned earlier that juveniles generally reoffend within 3 years. In SB 440 cases, is there data to support transfers to juvenile court to lower the risk of recidivism instead of prosecution as an adult in superior court? And Ms. Danielle, I think this is geared more towards you. So can you please answer?
Sure. I was trying to think of it. I haven't seen any specific data in regards to that. Those are good questions. I think that it's really just like general and specific. I don't know if there's any particular agencies that are doing studies on like transferring cases down and like what ends up happening with the kids. I think that's a really great question. I don't have an answer for that, but I'm definitely willing to take a look at it. It also really depends on like the offense type too. In Superior Court, one of the places that I prosecuted cases, we had roundtable discussions for SB 440s to really look holistically at the kids and what services and what exactly the charges were, especially in our sex offense cases. So we pulled their defects records, their school records, we pulled any kind of treatment and services, and usually we're able to make a decision even before indicting as to whether or not we should transfer them down. And so we had started collecting data on those, what happens to those kids after they've been transferred down. And I know that there's like statistics that say specifically for sex offense cases that treating them as juveniles is more advantageous than the adult systems. But in regards to like just overall cases, I'm not sure where that documentation would be. It's a good question though.
Thank you for that question.
And
Anybody else?
Madison Everett, I see your hand raised, but I'm not sure if you're able to unmute. If you're not, could you please pose your question in the chat box? And we have another question from Latanya Bolden. Does the roundtable happen for murders as well?
Yes. So any SB 440, including murder, so any juvenile charged as adult, we would do a roundtable discussion. We had a murder that happened in Douglas County with he was a 13-year-old. And so we ended up having that roundtable discussion. Not every jurisdiction does it that way. That was something that was actually incorporated from DeKalb. Dahlia Racine is the elected official who came from DeKalb and really wanted to focus on those cases in that holistic manner, because kind of what we were talking about earlier and approaches and ways to address it. It's really, we call it like the, Trinity, which is schools, courts, and communities. So we can't just have one section. We can't just look at it from a court perspective or just a community perspective. It's got to be all three. So being able to do that and being able to go ahead and make sure that all of those facets are being observed. I'm not saying that didn't, in some instances, turn out that they indicted them anyways and kept them in adult court. But, the prosecutor has a lot of discretion to transfer those cases pre-indictment. So we wanted to use that to our ability to really put kids in the places that they should be before trying to go through the adult system. But if your county, if your area utilizes that, then I would definitely try to be a part of the discussion as soon as possible whenever you know that there's been a juvenile charged as an adult.
I see some hands. Any more questions? I thought I saw a few hands. Tia, do you see any more questions?
No, so Medicine said she made a mistake. She didn't mean to raise her
Okay.
hand. So I think that's it
Okay.
for now.
Okay. Well, thank you all so much for asking the questions that you have asked. They have been great questions. And I just appreciate your willingness to be interactive with us because that's what we are all about. So getting into our final slide. Before I go over the things to remember, I did place some QR codes, which you can see on the screen. If you just scan this QR code really quick, it will take you to our website where you can get more more information about the programs we offer. But please do not fret. Again, as I mentioned earlier, I will be sending all of the information about the programs that we offer in the social services department to everyone who has been included or has attended, this informational session, just so you have the information right at your fingertips. So we have these informational sessions each and every month, for the exception of last month. We took a little break because we were preparing for our summer conference. And thank you guys if you are here and you signed up for this informational session via our summer conference. We really do appreciate you attending today. But in addition to that, I do want to mention that we try to discuss a different topic in each informational session. So if there's anything that you would like us to discuss, please don't hesitate to reach out to us to let us know your ideas. If you would like to speak on something, reach out to us. We would be happy to have you speak during one of our informational sessions. And then one thing that we are trying to do is bring in professionals who are experts in some of the topics that you guys would like us to discuss, just so you have that experience and that feedback and someone who can answer the questions that you may have, again, based on the topics that you all suggest. So I do just want to shout out Miss Maria because she did email us a topic, and so we will try our best to definitely discuss that topic in our next informational session. So again, please don't be shy. We accept all suggestions here at this department. So again, thank you guys for joining us today. And then, do I have any social workers in the house or any support staff in the house with us today?
Kenya, thank you so much for
Of
inviting
course.
us. This is Ronell.
Yes.
Hi. It's good to see
Hi.
you again.
Yes.
Yes, my team and I, we are here. And we're looking forward to many more of your sessions that are coming up. We'll also be able to
Yes.
provide some topics in the near future as to what we would like to speak on and share about.
Okay, that'll
Looking
be
forward,
great.
yes, and looking forward to the summer conference.
Yes, so with that being said, our department, we do have a social work conference coming up in January of 2025. We are still working on all of the details. Ms. Hunter, I know you and some of your team members attended ours. I think it was a few years ago. So we would love to have you all again next year, the beginning of next year. But if you all are interested, we will have so many resources that will come and speak and share information with you all. And again, we are all about collaboration in this department, and we want to work together to make sure we are being effective to our clients. So please be on the lookout for just details and information regarding our social work conference. It will be in the metro Atlanta area, so we will keep you guys updated. And that leads me to our statewide social work platform. So if when you guys get a moment, in this platform, we share different resources with each other, information that, will be useful for our clients, job openings and things of that sort. And so the more the merrier, the more people who will join our platform to share those resources with each other and everyone who's included in the platform, it will be so greatly appreciated. So if you are interested in joining the statewide social work platform that we have, again, it's statewide, please, you can just put your email or your first and last name if you are a part of GPDC in the chat box, and we will make sure that we are including you in this platform. So again, you can be aware of the resources and just some information that we share about our department as well in that platform. Okay. And then our referrals. So we again have two programs. We are currently working on a new process, a new referral process that we will, once we have all of that situated, we will definitely have another informational session just solely on how attorneys and their support staff can submit referrals to our unit. But we aim to be the solution to some of the things that I mentioned, the factors that I mentioned, the disparities that I mentioned earlier. So if you have a client who is in need of the things that I mentioned, who needs assistance with continuing their education, who needs assistance with getting substance use or mental health treatment, which is very important, food, clothing, we do have resources that we are wanting and willing to share with you all. So please, we are only an email and phone call away. So please don't hesitate to reach out to us. And from the social services department to you, we really appreciate you guys for joining us today. Again, I know most of you have busy schedules, so thank you for taking out the time to join us and hear the information that we shared. And thank you, Miss Danielle, again for speaking with us today about this topic. So I hope everyone has a great day and a great rest of their week. And I look forward to seeing you guys in our next informational session. We will always send out communication email blasts. We'll post it in that platform that we have. So, and if you're curious, if you haven't received an email or some sort of notification about our informational sessions, just shoot us an email, shoot us a text, call us, and we will get you that information. So thank you again, and I hope everyone has a great day. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Take care.
Any questions before we go? Okay. See the numbers going down. Okay. Bye.